All right, why don't we go ahead and get started. For anyone who needs ASL interpretation, we've got Allison and Melania. I think I pronounced that correctly. And you can pin them both as they switch off about every 20 minutes or so. So welcome everyone. This is our final PTA general meeting of the school year. Traditionally takes place in May, where we talk about the budget and starting to transition away from this school year, which is hard to believe, is we have about another 4 weeks left and into school year 2021-2022. So we have a full agenda tonight. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, including our principals. We've got Principal Berkowitz and Principal Fraser here tonight to give a short recap, talk about end of the school year plans, highlight any specific items that they want to as we head into the summer, and hopefully take time for quick Q&A before letting them return to their families this evening. So I promised Principal Berkowitz he could go first tonight. Without further ado, turning over to you, Principal Berkowitz. I think you just need to, oh, you're unmuted. There you go.
I'm all set. I think, can you hear me? This is the first time I'm using Zoom on this computer. Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our last PTA meeting. I want to just congratulate the PTA and Lona's leadership and many of the other parent leaders who stepped up big this year and no other year like it. I think that resilient in red theme from our auction has shown through not just that night, but all year long with our PTA's consistent and resilient support for our school. So I want to thank everyone, Lona and all the PTA members, for their contributions and tireless efforts for supporting our teachers and kids throughout the school year, and me too. So a couple of updates. Let's do this year first. So first some big news. Maybe it's not news now, but we had our first ever elementary debate on Friday. Our debate team has been working for years. I don't know if I'm scooping you here, Mr. Fraser, but we partnered with Stuart, and I think Ludlow did too. So there's a nice little feeder theme going there, and our fifth graders and some of even our third graders participated and did fabulously. They won our tournament. They were incredibly engaged in the graphic novel they read together. They transferred that Battle of the Books into the debate, the first ever elementary debate in the city. And our kids did really, really well, tried so hard, learned so many things. So I want to give kudos to them, and of course our teacher leaders who supported them at our school. And Mr. Fraser can name more, I'm sure, but we had Ms. Turkowski, Ms. Sullivan, and Ms. Lamont really take charge of supporting our great debaters. Another fun thing that I put out just on Friday is our step up days. I think this is somewhat of a tradition at Peabody and Watkins. I think it should be, if it's not yet, but a chance for our, let's say, rising third graders to meet their fourth grade teachers ahead of next year. So those are scheduled for June 9th. That's a Wednesday. It's kind of rolling meetings. So if you're in, let's say, pre-K3, there's a time for you to say goodbye in person to your pre-K3 teachers and then meet the new pre-K4 team. And those will kind of roll into each other. So we're inviting all of our current students, of course, but also our newly enrolled students. So we will see our newest babies and also anyone who's entering our school for next year in from the lottery. So that's exciting to start making our connections for our strong and full reopening next year. So speaking of that, I've been talking about this mostly in the LSAT setting, but we had over 200 families decline seats for an in-person learning seat, whether it be in term 3 or term 4. Total was over 200. So I've been working with Bijan, our community action team member, our social workers, Ms. Caraway, some of our teachers too, to survey families. We surveyed over 100, close to 120 of those families to kind of understand why no, right? Not to judge them, but to understand them and hopefully meet those families where they are ahead of this reopening panel community meeting on June 15th at 6 o'clock. So we're going to have teachers, who are virtual but enthusiastic about coming back in person next year, teachers who have been serving in person, kids. We have some family parents who are doctors that are going to provide some insight from their point of view to really answer questions, hopefully shed some light on what the in-person experience is, because I want all of our families, all of our staff to be as comfortable as possible coming back to school, because it'll be a long time for some of these families, the first time in a long time to come back. So the data from our surveys is kind of driving the agenda of that. I'd appreciate it if you are an in-person family who knows families who are not back, but maybe said no to an offer, please encourage them to come. And if that's you, you declined a seat, that's totally okay. We want to inform you about how we keep things safe and what the student experience is like, the mask wearing, the cohorting, all of the safety and cleaning precautions, and really also hear from kids, hear from teachers about what their experience has been. So please save the date for June 15th at 6 o'clock, and you'll see messaging from me with access and all that coming soon. So that's going to take us through the end of the year. Of course, we've got our 5th grade promotional ceremony coming and our end of year kindergarten ceremony as well for promotion. So let's turn to next year. There's a couple of things that I'm working on to make sure that next year is a success. I've talked to our before, you might have heard that Chancellor announced that before and aftercare should be all the way back. I've reached out to our 3 providers across the 2 schools, and they're enthusiastic about coming back and providing services that are similar to what we're used to, similar to, or if not the same. I've also been working with our PTA group on the start times of both campuses without the shuttle. It's a new challenge for some families about doing 2 drop-offs for some folks. So we're kind of negotiating the start times within the tours of duty of our teachers. So that's 8 to 3:30, and hoping to finalize a draft for some parent feedback this week, so that there's a big enough window to get from one campus to the other to pick up your babies, or to drop them off for an on-time arrival, as well as pick them up. And that goes for the beginning of school, the end of the school day, 3:15, 3:30, and also aftercare. Aftercare providers I raised the question about being flexible about the pickup time, whether it be 6 o'clock, maybe I asked for a couple more minutes, and they seem to be open to that, but we haven't yet nailed it down. But I'm working on it and working with our parents and staff on it as well. We're looking at some changes, some small tweaks at Peabody, and the Peabody folks are taking it in stride. They don't think that this will be a significant change for them. So hopefully it's just a small tweak that works for families. Yeah, that's my list. So happy to take question about those items or others. When will aftercare?
Sorry, we've got a question in the chat. When will the aftercare programs for 2022 be open for enrollment?
I don't know yet. I think DCPS has to come up with the rules to see like what limits us and restricts us, if anything, that's different. And that has not been published yet from the city. I wrote to one of them, and one of them said, when can I fill out the building use form next week? And I said, yes. So like, that's one like bureaucratic hurdle that I'm sure will be easy to take on. And as soon as we're clear on the start times, and I don't know if the funding or the cost of the programming will be different given if we change by 15 minutes or something like that. But the providers are aware that that's what we're thinking about, and they're going to work on their new promotional thing. So not quite at the enrollment part, but clarifying like what actually we'll be able to offer. Oh, this was the other thing. I said extra time, sorry. The Peabody school improvement team, hopefully this message has been broadcast loud and clear, but was it last week? Not last week, the month before, the community was really clear on like, guys, please just approve the extra time to get the project done before it's the last minute. And that actually was done. So I think they're working 7 days a week at this time, not 5, not 6. They're putting all the time in up front to make sure that we do have an on-time opening for the Peabody facility. And that includes, if you're part of the SIT, what I've been asking about, getting the 12-month people like the leadership team and the custodial staff and Ms. Turner into the building early so it's fully ready for teachers to come back. And so those conversations are ongoing at the SIT, but also behind the scenes. And I think it's only the outlook is only more and more confident that we're going to have an on-time opening for Peabody.
We've got a comment from Sarah Cissna and Maggie Adams. The 30-minute drop-off window for Peabody is very helpful. Even a 15-minute window would be amazing instead of the everyone wait here in the lobby like it's Penn Station until 8:45 a.m. and then haul upstairs to your classrooms.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, thank you, Sarah. I think there's going to be a lot of, or at least some changes about the arrival, especially at Peabody. I don't anticipate parents coming in the building, just like they don't now for our Peabody students. We're also looking at alternate drop-off points, not just on, what is that, C Street? What are the numbers? 4th and 5th or 5th and 6th? 4th and 5th. Yeah. So we're gonna have to, it's gonna look different because parents aren't gonna walk their students. I don't anticipate parents walking students to the classroom door. The other variable, of course, is the shuttle. And also we've got like this new curb cutout. So we're working on some kind of like kiss and ride situation that's, I'm actually familiar with because that's in all Virginia schools. So it'll look different, hopefully not more cumbersome for parents, but ideally it's more efficient. The kids are either just in the building or on the playground and like organized and supervised by staff as soon as possible.
Sounds good. Is it fair to say that you'll be able to share this with the community early June, mid-June at the latest?
Start time, certainly. I can't tell you what we will and won't be able, when, like, whether parents are not are allowed in the building isn't up to me, right? It's up to, like, I guess it could be up to me, but the COVID measures may say no. And then we have to like organize with parents. Yeah, I want to get it out to everybody before summer, for sure.
Great. Sounds good. Does anyone have any other questions for Principal Berkowitz tonight? Sounds good. You're more than welcome to stay on while we transfer or head over to Stuart. We've got Principal Fraser turning over to you for Stuart updates as we head into the summer.
Okay, this one is calling. I'm going to do bedtime. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Principal Berkowitz, for going first as usual. I appreciate that. And thank you, Lona, for a little bit of time to talk to everybody tonight. I want to echo Principal Berkowitz's sentiments, thanking the PTA. Your resilience this year and ability to pivot in a pandemic, and I think deliver the same level of support for our students and our staff that we're accustomed to is really deeply appreciated. You know, it's like little things like snacks for our kids who are coming in person, to holiday cheer bags, like the annual staff shirts that we give out at Stuart, and like the massive help that the grants were for teachers as they turned their home offices into classrooms early in the year. Like all that went a really long way towards helping us achieve whatever normalcy, however we define that this year. So we really deeply appreciate that, even in a wild and crazy year like this. I think I'll work from the big stuff backwards down to the small and fun stuff. So thinking about summer and next year, we obviously have 3 programs mapped out for the summer. The first is the Acceleration Academy, where we're targeting tier 2 and 3 students who need extra support to get ready for next year. And that will work kind of side by side with DCPS Summer School, which is a virtual program where students who have Fs at the end of the year will have the opportunity to resolve those Fs, which will actually be turned into incompletes on June 26th. So those 2 programs will be happening. Acceleration Academy is a 2-week program at Stuart from the 19th through the 30th of July. And then August 9th through 12th, we will have our annual Panther Pride Academy for rising sixth graders. That's our summer bridge program that we've always done. That will also be in person. It's unlimited seats, so whoever's interested is going to be able to come. We typically get about 50 to 65% of the incoming sixth grade in a non-pandemic year. So we're hoping that we can, get back as close to that as possible, if not exceed it. And then some of our teachers have opted in to do additional enrichment. So in our newsletter to families, we've been sharing what those different programs are. We have a preference survey out. We're hoping to match students to at least one of their top 3 interests. And if the cohorting guidance and things like that change for the summer, we may be able to enroll students in multiple programs. But right now we have to adhere to the term 4 cohorting guidance, which only allows students to be with one unique group of their peers. So those enrichment programs, they range from like academic support, so getting ready for a specific math course, to time with the theater teacher to get a jump start on theater and to reconnect with some peers if that was a program that the student might have been a part of previously. So that's our summer. And like Principal Berkowitz, we're planning for a fully in-person school year next year. We know that our families by and large, want to be in person. And so we're really excited that we're gonna be there starting in August, and that's what we're trying to put as much energy into planning for as possible. So getting our CSP together to plan for in-person learning and make sure that we have ample virtual supports for families that don't choose or return in person at the beginning of the school year. But our primary focus is on planning for in-person school in a crowded school building. The other thing that we have going on right now, we're working hard on enrollment. We're approaching 65% of our target. 8th grade rising 8th grade is out in the lead in our enrollment races. 7th grade is not far behind, and then the rising 6th grade is in 3rd place, which is a pretty typical historical pattern. So we're targeting some of our outreach to those rising 6th grade families to see if they have lingering questions, to convince them not to take the other waitlist offer that they got, and to sign up and join us. So we have some competitions for them, like ice cream socials to the feeder school that hits their enrollment target first. We're going to offer some in-person tours to families that are enrolled. So if rising 6th graders or 7th graders who haven't been in the building yet want to come in and see classrooms and things like that, we'll be organizing some tours. I'll be guiding some of those. We'll try to get some staff, some teachers in to guide some of those tours as well. We will have the promotion ceremonies for 8th graders on Wednesday, June 23rd. So that's the day before the last day of classes for students. We'll have 2 in-person options for families that we're surveying to see if they would like to opt in. So 10 o'clock, we'll have one at 10 o'clock in the morning, another in-person ceremony at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we'll have a virtual ceremony that we'll release at 6 o'clock that night for anybody who didn't attend the in-person events or who enjoyed it so much that they want to relive that memory and watch another promotion ceremony with their peers. So to kind of like capture all that for everybody, similar to Principal Berkowitz, I think he said they're going the week after. We have a family info session on the calendar for June 9th at 6:30 p.m. I think scribbling that down, I realized I didn't put it in the newsletter on Sunday as I intended to. But we'll start spreading the word about that. June 9th at 6:30, we'll kind of do a summer and next school year info session and share whatever we know and what our big plans are for the summer and next school year. We're busy hiring. We have a few vacancies. We made some adjustments on the budget to align positions with values. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to change, but we did add we had a net gain of 3 positions on our budget. So we're adding a guidance counselor, a behavior tech, and an instructional coach for our humanities teachers. So the first 2 positions obviously will support students with getting back into the school building, with our ability to support them and meet their needs. We know that kids will have probably more social and emotional needs coming into next school year than they've had in the past. So we want to be equipped to screen for that and then also to offer those supports as we identify students who need us the most. So hiring is something that's keeping us busy. And then the last things, these are fun. Principal Berkowitz talked about the debate that happened on Saturday between Ludlow and Watkins. No favorites there. I'm just really happy to see our national champion debate team students teaching the elementary school kids how to debate and then being the judges in those debate rooms. If any of you parents on the call who were there, it was really, really fun. The Watkins and Ludlow kids were all dressed up. There were some bow ties and really nice sundresses and ties and things like that. And they knew their stuff. They had read the book. They had prepared their arguments. I only heard one student throw a parent under the bus, but everybody else was pretty excited to be there, and they were really, really into it. So I think what we know about debate is you can teach a kid at any age how to argue, and so we may as well leverage that in our favor. So we're excited. That was really fun. We're excited to grow that next year, and we're also excited for those kids to matriculate into Stewart. So that's just one of the things that we're trying to do to maintain our connection with our feeder schools, and particularly not just me and families, but our students and the students who are in those schools. So it's a way for our kids to give back to their elementary schools. And then baseball and track teams have been busy. Baseball only has 2 opponents this year because of the pandemic, but we're playing a lot of games against Hardy and Deal, and I am bragging a lot to Principal Cook over at Hardy that they can't beat us yet. And then the track team has their second meet this Wednesday. And lastly, this week we're having our Spring Spirit Week, and that's going to culminate in our first and only, hopefully ever, virtual PEP assembly. We can't wait to get back in person and get everybody in the gym, but we're going to pack them all in on teams, and we have like TikTok style challenges out there to staff and to students right now, so the kids can record themselves doing any number of silly things. We'll play some of those videos during the PEP assembly and do our usual point scoring to see which grade level comes out on top and if anybody can beat the staff in some of those competitions. So the in-person students last Wednesday were recording themselves doing some of the challenges and getting a lot of laughs out of it. So we're really excited for that. And we're hoping that just keeps our energy high and recharges people's batteries as we hit this. What I heard a couple parents talking about is just, it's surprising how far away we are from the end of the year. And that, I think a few people are feeling that. So we're just trying to have some fun with these last few weeks, and then make sure that kids who are on the cusp of struggling, that we clean up some of those poor grades before the end of the year and prevent as many of those incompletes as possible, because that's not something we want the kids to carry into the summer or even next school year. So that's where we are. I think I got all of it. I see a question from, let me see, the question about what impact, what impact will 7th grade grades have on 9th grade selective admissions? I mean, historically speaking, right, like 7th grade tends to be the report card that selective high schools look at, because by the time you apply in 8th grade, you don't have many grades as an 8th grader. So I think that will continue to be true. I don't know that we've seen anything formal in terms of like what the selective schools have changed about their policies because of this. But I think, was it last year? In one of the last 2 school years, we saw a, kind of like mid-year change to the WALS test, right? Or the WALS admissions criteria. So hopefully we get some of those, if there are any changes or if there's anything out of the ordinary, historically speaking, I hope that we will get that information soon. It's something I can make note of and ask the Deputy Chief of Secondary Schools to see if there's anything that we can share, maybe even by that June 9th family event.
You've got one more question in the chat, Principal Fraser, which is, Brooke is asking, when will the tours that you mentioned be offered?
Right now, I know that they will not be on Wednesday, because that's the day when we're already busy with people in the building. They'll probably be in the afternoons for the most part, after school. We might offer like an early morning one for people who could make like a 9 o'clock or something like that. We just need to check staff availability to do it, and then we'll put out a schedule of tours that people can sign up for.
Sounds good. Does anyone else have any other questions for Principal Fraser? Just checking the screens. It looks like we are.
I have a question.
Sorry.
Hi,
Hey,
Ms.
Lona,
Sullivan.
it's Denise. Hi, Principal Fraser.
Hi.
It's Denise Fort. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So a couple questions, like in addition to the, I'm super concerned about the grades this year impacting how our kiddos will be able to access selective high schools. So that's one. Two, though, my kiddo will be accessing the accelerated learning or the summer learning stuff this summer. And I would love to hear how you're thinking about making sure it's aligned to the curriculum and that we're actually accelerating learning. Like Gaby doesn't need to be held back, but we need to be focusing on how we actually accelerate learning. So little insight there would be awesome.
So as far as the summer work, our teachers are designing those. Well, they're like the DCPS in math only acceleration opportunities. The frustrating thing for me as a principal about those is we have more kids who are, eligible on paper for them than we'll get seats. So while that'll help some group of our students, it won't help everybody who's eligible and who might benefit from it. But the ones that we are designing similar to those, where we've had teachers opt into doing the summer acceleration work outside of the capital AA Acceleration Academy. That's going to come from the courses that they'll teach next year or that the students will be heading into. So it's designed to look at the course that the kids are coming from, and we'll look at their end of year assessments that they're taking right now in iReady and MAP primarily, and look for major standards gaps. So look for the power standards, what are the recurring standards that we see that are directly addressed in units of study or that undergird units of study, and try to give students additional at-bats with those standards and with tasks aligned to those standards. So I'm confident that because our teachers are the ones designing it, and similarly central office, those programs are designed by teachers who write curriculum for central. All those math opportunities should be really well aligned. When it comes to next year, what we're talking about, and we picked up this language from from ANET, who has supported us, not just in giving assessments to kids all year, but also in helping us to look at the data on the back end and plan for instruction, is to think about enrichment and intervention that's just in time. So rather than having standalone, the first week of the unit, we're going to blitz through as many standards as we can that you didn't learn last year or last unit that you should have, figuring out where in each unit of study those 5 different standards that we might not yet be proficient on play the most important role, and offering the small group tutoring, small group pullout, individualized assignments and things like that right around the time that kids will have to put that standard to use. So we're thinking about how to do that just in time enrichment across the curriculum in all subjects throughout the school year for all kids. So that's going to be a big academic focus for us next year when it comes to instructional planning. I had another thought that just.
I'm a super nerd, so I super appreciate all of it you've said. That's awesome. Okay.
This is what it is. DCPS is not mandating advisory anymore. So we'll do advisory type lessons, but we'll have the flexibility to embed that teaching and learning around like executive functioning and social emotional learning and organization skills, like the things that and community building, like the stuff that you typically do in advisory standalone. We'll have the opportunity to pepper throughout different courses, right? So like there's no reason kids shouldn't do community building intermittently in an English class or in their science class. And there's no reason that those teachers also can't reinforce executive functioning skills and things like that. That frees us up to have a period that we are going to design I think the way as a parent to think of it is like an additional elective. And some of those opportunities will have an academic angle. So, we're going to get away from the model of an intervention only being for students who are behind or below grade level, because what happens is those students tend to get an they miss out on other electives that students who are on grade level get access to. And just from an equality and equity standpoint, like that's not really great, because they're missing out on arts and things like that could be really fun for them because they have to be in reading or math intervention. So instead, we'll have this extra period where we can give everybody a little bit of enrichment, intervention, and extra electives. We just need to map out with the teachers what those course offerings will be. So it's very possible that like a student in algebra could take an elective that is like a math skills class that's teaching geometry skills, for example. So like getting the student ready for geometry, even though they're officially, you know, for the year, they're in an algebra course, or it could teach some, you know, 8th grade math skills that they need in geometry, that they need in algebra while they're taking full year of algebra, and the algebra teacher doesn't have to take responsibility for teaching all of those prerequisite skills necessarily. So that's something that we're excited about. I think you'll see that when you talk to parents in other middle schools, you'll hear that they're, you know, probably doing something similar, especially if they're offering a 7-period-a-day schedule like we will be.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hello, my question has to do with school trips. Do y'all do trips? I mean, 1 trip a year doesn't work for me, neither does 2. So what about school trips?
Yeah, we will. I mean, assuming that all that the guidance around that gets, you know, relaxed going into next year, we'll do trips. We tend to do a lot of trips. I was going to say, if I had to guess what a gripe would be that a staff member or somebody would have, it's that we do too many trips, and, you know, we're always finding ways to get the kids down to the mall and to the museums. There are just so many opportunities in the immediate neighborhood of our school to reinforce learning. I think we end up, you know, taking more trips than most schools would. So I would expect that you'll get a lot more than 1 or 2 trips next school year.
That is actually a perfect segue to our special guest. Thank you very much, Principal Fraser. We will see you soon. For our one of our 2 special guests tonight, we wanted to find the perfect person to talk to us about opportunities in and around Washington, D.C., especially as we head into the summer. Places we probably know well, places we probably haven't been to for a while, maybe some secret spots. So we did not have to look far. Some of you might recognize Jennifer Epstein is our resident expert when it comes to all of the Martin Luther King Jr. events that we have had at the Lincoln Memorial each year that our 5th graders do. And so I will turn it over to Jen Epstein. She is officially the education specialist for the National Mall with the National Park Service. And she has brought along her colleague, Lindstrom Terry from the Rock Creek Conservancy's Equity and Engagement AmeriCorps Vista Director. There you go, Jen.
Yeah, you got it all. Great. Lindstrom, I hope I got it right. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here. I feel like I know Stuart-Hobson pretty well. I spent a lot of time there with a few history teachers ago, and have been really fortunate to work with Watkins from the beginning of the program of having the students do the I Have a Dream speech on the Lincoln Steps. I'm stretching a little bit because I'm talking about all the parks in our region, and I'm not going to talk about all of them because we'd be here a long time. But I had to start with my park, the National Mall, just to remind you all that that's where we are, and that's where I'm from. And what I did was just compile a bunch of photos of some of the parks that are available to us in our region. And then I'm gonna give it to Lindstrom because I'm really excited that he's here tonight and joining us. So let me see. One thing I will leave you with are the website and the new National Park Service app, or where you can find it, because as of now, a lot of our sites are not open. If they're indoor sites, places that you have to go into a building, we on the mall, we just reopened Ford's Theater a week ago. It's, I think, like the museums, it's on a ticket system. So I would recommend, if you're planning any trips to go into something, even some of our places, I looked a Greenbelt, for instance, is like the only place in the National Park Service around us where you can go camping, and they're not doing camping yet. So I would really recommend that. I don't know everything about every place. So if you're planning any trips around the area, to just check the Park Service website or check the app, and it'll tell you right away what's open and what's not. So just some examples of some places that maybe you already know or maybe forgot about and think maybe this would be some places we could go. The African American Civil War Memorial is actually part of our park on the National Mall, even though it's at U Street, but it is part of our park, and there's a museum right nearby. I'm not sure even about the status of that because we don't run that. You all probably are pretty familiar with Lincoln Park and the statue of Mary McLeod Bethune there. Her house is also part of the Park Service. And I think, as far as I know, the houses, I know Douglas's house isn't open yet. So I would check on any of that houses that you go into. I would guess that they haven't quite, I think all of our parks are kind of working together in the region. And I would guess that we all have the same thing going right now, that we're all kind of on hold for a little bit as far as going into buildings. Great Falls, you have a couple options. You can go to Great Falls on the Virginia side, which is a very popular place to take. Particularly, I think the city kids love getting out and seeing the Potomac and the falls. You can do it from the Virginia side. You can also go to the C&O Canal on the Maryland side, the Great Falls side. The C&O Canal goes from Georgetown all the way up to Cumberland, Maryland, and fantastic place to bike and hike and all kinds of things. But you can go see the Great Falls if you like that. It's every time I go there, I stand there and I go, wow, this is just so beautiful. I threw in a picture of Rock Creek, but I'm going to let Lindstrom tell you all about that here in a second. Another one of our sites, I know it's not open yet, but will be soon, the Arlington House, which has just undergone a pretty intense restoration, as well as rethinking. I think it's fair to say the interpretation that's going to go on there, you know, with all the current events and things happening. Looking at a place known as the Robert E. Lee Memorial is probably a time to kind of look at some of that history again. So I think they'll be telling some different stories there. The top picture is Fort Washington, which is along the Potomac. When you're at Fort Washington, you can look across and you can see Mount Vernon. So if you've never been out there, it's really worth a trip. Our region stretches from Maryland to West Virginia, Harper's Ferry to down into Virginia. So I have Catoctin Mountain, the flowers from Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens, and Burnside Bridge from the Antietam Battlefield. So our region incorporates all kinds of things, from flowers to hiking to history to all sorts of things. And farm animals. Lindstrom and I actually went to Oxon Hill Farm once together, I think, one of our summers. But if you're into animals, I would check out the Oxon Hill Farm right along the, I think it's right near where the National Harbor, kind of around that area. Anyway, I knew I was going to forget all my fields here that look all kind of the same. Greenbelt on the top right, Prince William Forest Park. If you go down towards Triangle and Quantico, that's there. They have some great stuff. I looked it up. They have a summer camp, but it's already booked up. But if you have young people who are interested in like the Secret Service and the OSS, Prince William Forest Park had spy training during World War II, and that's kind of interesting. So you might want to check that out. And then the bottom right picture is Wolf Trap. And you might be familiar with Wolf Trap as a place where you can go and see some shows. I'm pretty sure they're going to be offering shows this year. But you can also go hike around the trails at Wolf Trap. And so that's something maybe kind of fun to do if you have the time and want to get out. I just happened to notice a friend of mine on Facebook posted pictures of a whole mess of cicadas out there. So if you want to go check that out at Wolf Trap, no. Our website, nps.gov, is the main Park Service website, and you can click on any of the states. So if you want to know what Virginia or Maryland or DC has to offer, you can click on that state. You can look up a park by its own name, but there is a calendar, and I just happened to, I'm so not tech, but I just screenshotted, if that's a word, this calendar page. So here's Monocacy up in Frederick, and they are going to have this outdoor contact station. So you can find this webpage and all the events that anybody has put into the calendar. It's a one-stop shop for our region. So you can find, like, the next thing down here is the Battlefield Park, the Henry Hill Walking Tour at Manassas. So any park that put in an event, you can just go to our calendar and you can find it all there. And then if you are more tech savvy than I am, check out our new app. It just came out, I think maybe even a month or two ago. It's pretty recent, and all the parks have been working really hard to put all their info in it. So I think I assume it's a free download, and yeah, check it out. And that's where you can find out more current events and things like that. So I will hang around. I am super excited to introduce my buddy Lindstrom. He's a product of Watkins and Stuart-Hobson. And he was in the very first class. I get like way emotional. You know, you'd think I like raised him or something, but he was in the very first class that did the I Have a Dream speech on the Lincoln Steps when he was in the 4th grade. And I really met him in 8th grade at Stuart-Hobson, where he was part of a club where we took a week-long trip in 2009 to learn all about the sites related to President Lincoln. It was his 200th birthday. And so we spent a week, I spent a week with his teacher and 18 of his classmates, and we traveled to St. Louis and back on a bus. It's a long bus trip, but it was great. And we've kept in touch, and I'm so excited that he's working a job with the national parks this year. And so I'm really glad he's here. I sure hope he's still around. Lindstrom, go ahead.
Thanks, Ms. Jen, for that. Appreciate it.
I'm so excited to see you.
Everyone, thanks for having me tonight. So I'm working with the Rock Creek Conservancy, which is the official partner organization with the Rock Creek Park for the National Park Service. And so we've been working on a couple of programs that we're going to be hosting for the summer. And one of them is called a Summer in the Parks program, which is kind of like a revamped version of the 1968 to 1976 programs that were hosted in the at different parks in the DC area. So in a second, after I'm finished talking, I'll drop a link in the chat for that. So every Thursday night from 5 to 8 in June at the Carter Barron Amphitheater, we'll be hosting different themed events. So the first week will be, the first week is going to be bike themed. The second week is going to be dog themed. The third week is going to be recreate responsibly in the parks. And the fourth week will be book themed. We'll have different people come out. We'll have a DJ, food trucks, and different events for everyone to enjoy. And we also have a web series called Race History in Rock Creek, where we'll be hosting different web series or virtual conversations around different events that took place in Washington, D.C. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop everything in the chat for you guys. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Sorry about that. There you guys go. I dropped 5 different links. So the first one is the upcoming events for that we'll be having. The second one is for the Summer in the Parks events that I just spoke about. And the third one is the web series about the race and history in Rock Creek. And the 2 below that is just if you guys want to get onto the parks on your own and plan a hike, we have on the NPS website, there's a place where you can plan a hike as well.
These are great, super, super helpful. And I think,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, go ahead, Gail. I was just gonna say, we'll capture these websites too, so don't feel like you have to write them down. We'll make sure they're in the notes. Sorry, Gail.
No, I just wanted to ask him if we try to do something and it's all filled up, we can call him and he can get us in.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a large capacity for the events that are taking place in the Summer in the Parks. No tickets are required, but if you want to register for the virtual events, you can. But I can drop my contact information as well. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is great. Does anyone have any questions for Lindstrom or Jen? I think this is exactly what we were looking for, just sort of some reminders and new places that our families can explore for free or for a small monetary amount as we head into the hot months. Terry just dropped his email in the chat. We'll make sure we capture that in the notes.
What was the year of the first address on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial when you did it?
2004 or 5. What do you think? It was 4th grade back then. You were 4th grade.
Yeah, that was
You didn't get them
2004 because I started.
You didn't get the microphone yet. We hadn't worked up to that yet. But if you ever come to my office, not that you'd want to, I have a picture of him from doing this speech in the 4th grade to when I met him in the 8th grade to when he worked with us as a high school intern one year. And it's kind of this whole thing, and just made me so excited to hear the principal talk about lots of field trips, because I was so sure we were never going to see students on field trips again. And what a he's my prize student here that I've kept up with the most for all these years. And when I heard this was Watkins and Stuart, I was like, oh man, you've got to come out and join me for this one.
Yeah, this is amazing. I told my mom about it too, because me and all my siblings, we all graduated throughout the Capitol Hill clusters. So we started in like 1983, and my little sister graduated in I think 2011. So, yep. So the whole family went.
This is fantastic. Can we consider you part of the alumni club?
Definitely, definitely.
Okay.
So Lona, if I interrupt, this is Stephanie Coleman. Lindstrom, I taught you in fifth.
Hey, how are you?
Good. It's so nice to see you. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks for
I
everything.
know we've done field trips too.
Yes, we have. Yeah. All right. I just had to. So proud. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good
Awesome.
to see you, Miss
Bye.
Coleman.
You too.
Jen and Lindstrom, we have a question in the chat and I think a hand raised too. Are there any amazing NPS sites besides Frederick Douglass House east of the Anacostia?
Anacostia Park. Is Kenilworth considered east of the river? Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens?
Yeah, Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens is definitely east of the river. I'm not sure of any other national park sites that I could think of besides like
Those
park
are the
areas,
ones.
I guess.
Do you have Theodore Roosevelt Island on there too?
We should. I didn't, but yes, it is part of the George Washington Memorial Parkway, which goes from, just about the Beltway down to just before Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon's not part of the Park Service because the government said we didn't want it back in the 1800s. And so everything along the road, which includes Arlington House, Great Falls, Clara Barton and Glen Echo, which I don't think Clara Barton's been open for a while, but there are a whole lot of things, Dyke Marsh, a bunch of things down, you can do like the Mount Vernon Trail. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, our website and the app. Somebody said they saw the app and it looked pretty good.
Yeah,
I haven't
Sarah
downloaded
said
it
she's
yet.
loaded the app and it was super easy.
Great. Good,
Yeah.
good.
So, well, we really want to thank you. I know we've run over time, but can't thank you enough for joining us on your Monday night. It's great to see you, Jen. I'm sure we will see you as we start to plan next year. Lindstrom, you're in the club. Get ready. We got your email address. There's no turning back.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Go visit him at Rock Creek and the Carter Barron and all that stuff.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Lindstrom.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, we are running a little bit over time, and we are at the point where we're going to pivot and talk about our framework budget for next year. Before Jessica Panet, our co-treasurer, shares the presentation of the framework budget, I just wanted to make two top line points to our community. The first is to acknowledge the fact that we've put together a budget in a year where we had significantly less fundraising in a pandemic. We did, of course, spend less because of the pandemic, but those two factors combined with a conservative approach to spending has put us in a cautious but realistic position to approach next year to take care of our community, the needs of our administration, and most importantly, the needs of our kiddos. I want to personally thank the PTA Exec Committee and our PTA board who shared their thoughts, concerns, and their feedback over the last 10 days as we have finalized a budget to present to our community tonight. Secondly, I want to stress that the PTA views inclusion and equity as a top line priority. I hope that our community saw this at the beginning or the end of last year, the beginning of this year, with our support of Kindred's first year. We as a board have also done work internally, including our first anti-bias session with the full PTA board and the Wells Collective back in February. Our commitment to equity and inclusion has not changed. It is a top line priority and will continue to be so, including Kindred when the Kindred team is ready to talk about proposed parameters for the next school year. After tonight, the budget voting will be posted online at some point tomorrow when we get our ducks in a row and the Google form up, and will stay through Tuesday, June 1st, approximately 12 p.m. So everyone will have an opportunity to vote on the budget up or down. And then, of course, there'll be a section for comments and feedback, which we will be sure to read and take to heart. So without further ado, I'd love to turn it over to Jess Pannett. She is going to give a framework budget presentation on the budget. When I say framework budget, we are doing similar to what we did last year, where we are passing an outline of a budget and the allocations for each campus. But the actual campus spending will be decided in August and in the very beginning of September, once principals have a better sense of what dollars they're going to put towards which programming. And so Jess, I'm going to turn it over to you. She's got a slide presentation too. Okay, you've got host.
Yep.
Host
Can everyone see? Thumbs up if you can see it. Okay, perfect. I never know if this is working. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to move the little window that pops up. I have to move it so I can actually read this. So we have two general accounts for the cluster. I know we go over this every year, but I feel like people forget and it gets confusing. So we're going to go over it again. We have the operating budget, which is what we're talking about tonight. And we have carryover surplus, we call it, from the previous year. We have dues and donations, and we have major fundraisers that go into calculating the operating budget. And the community votes on that overall budget in the spring, like we're doing from today forward. And then the campus spending will be done early fall, like Lona said just a few minutes ago. The campus spending is done per pupil, and I don't have that in front of me right now, but we'll get to that at a later screen so we can talk about that. And then there's teacher grants and appreciation that's built in, and there's PTA operations that are built in. And then we have the reserve funds, and the reserve funds come from classic pledges, which stay at each campus. We also have grants that are always earmarked for specific uses in the school, usually per campus. It's usually campus-based. Then we have the Stuart-Hobson Theater ticket sales and costs. They kind of blend together, and they use that as a sort of a fund to fund the program. And then the Peabody activity fee, which is also used for supplies and activities of the Peabody kiddos. And we have rainy day fund, Peabody activity fee, the teacher stipends for $100 each, grant specific activities, flex and music scholarships, all kind of come out of the reserve funds. So next screen. Okay, so just to take a look at last year, I think you all remember we started with a budget, that's the one on the left, and it was robust. It was sort of comparable to some of our previous budgets. We were pretty optimistic going into the year, but as we've learned over the past year, there's just nothing you can count on. So midway in the year, around February, we had to do the revised budget. So if you look at this on the left really quickly, we spent 78% at the campus levels. And then the other operating pieces are these smaller slices. And they're all listed here. I know it's kind of hard to see. I don't want to zoom in though, because then we lose this other one. But I put the amount down here as large as I could get it to make it a little bit something to jump off the page at least. The revised budget is on the right. And as you can see, because the campuses had already spent a certain amount of their money, we couldn't reduce their budget as much. So we ended up reducing the operating budget a lot more, which didn't actually work out very well. We had to make a couple tweaks, but we got through it. We got there, and it was $125,423 was survived on, just barely. And that was obviously expenses down. So we made it through. And then what you'll see on the next screen is a pie chart that is sort of closely resembles the one on the left with a few little tweaks. So you can see here 74%, so it's 78% in the previous one, it's 74% here. So we're keeping that robust. And then all of the other slices are fairly close. Some of them seem bigger than they did before, even if the numbers are the same, and that's because the pie got smaller. So 132,000 is this year's budget, down from, what was it? Sorry, I've already forgotten. 191,000 was last year. So it is significant. Let's see, go down to, okay, this was the reserve spending for this year. We didn't actually have much. It was instructional bags, teacher stipends, library resources at Peabody, at Watkins, instructional bags and teacher stipends, at Stuart, the drama program, teacher stipends again, and library resources. And then we spent some money in the community from the Cluster Cares Fund. Those are all reserve spending accounts. And then this is just a few highlights of community spending. We are going to do an end of year budget report like we did last year, and it'll be very thorough and it will list everything that we spent money on over the 3 campuses and community wide. But we just wanted you to know a few highlights. So the cluster community events that we sponsored were scavenger hunt, Lego night, and anxiety center discussion. The campus-wide events were virtual field trips at Peabody and Watkins, grade level meetups at Stuart-Hobson, principal popsicles and pretzels for Peabody and Watkins to meet the principal back in the beginning of the school year. And then meeting and event support, the Zoom platform costs for virtual meetings and American Sign Language interpretation costs. And then equity and inclusion training, Kindred and the Wells Collective, which is the one that Lona was talking about. And then citywide support, we gave $500 to Serve Your City Ward 6 Mutual Aid and $1,000 to the Stanton Elementary School. Okay, so we are making some revenue assumptions going into this year. Our major fundraisers are going to be the house tour, and we're using the same estimate as last year's original budget for the house tour. We're going to have 2 classics this year, which we've never had before. We don't really know what to expect. So we sort of estimated slightly lower on both of them, not knowing if sponsors were going to be giving the same amount to both, or if they were going to give a slightly smaller amount to one or the other. We just don't really know. And then the spring auction, we did a similar estimate to last year's revised budget. And then dues and donations, dues are in line with the actuals from last year. That's what we're assuming. And then we're also assuming slightly lower corporate donations. Corporate and small business, I should say. It kind of sounds bigger when you say corporate, but it's really the local businesses. And then these are the spending assumptions. So we have $85 per student, which is down from $125 per student from the beginning of last year. And then of course, the revised budget went down to $87 per student. But just for some context, the year before 2021, so 2019-20, we were at $150 per student. So the trend is that things are moving downwards, and at some point it'll plateau. We just don't know when. Slightly lower projected enrollment, which, you know, it is what it is, and then a much smaller starting surplus. And the unknowns, we don't know the costs associated with the academic recovery. We don't know what the full return to in-person learning will look like. And that actually, one of the principals brought up, there might still be some virtual in place. We just don't know. What social emotional support for students might be required, costs of community support, and costs of Peabody due to the flood. Okay, so now we're at the proposed budget. So as you can see, well, maybe you can't, hold on, I'm blocking things. Okay, so the starting surplus is $15,000, and in last year's budget, it was $57,000. So that is a significant drop. And just want to highlight that because that means that all of the fundraising becomes super important to make sure that we can pay for everything this year. We are budgeting to sort of borrow from the rainy day funds, $7,600. And if the fundraisers raise more than we expect, then we can pay that back and we'll be back to where we started there. So that would be good. Fundraising income, all sources, we're assuming $110,000, and that's, again, the house tour, we're doing the same estimate as last year, $15,000. Auction, we're assuming $50,000, which is 10 more than we assumed in the revised budget. We assumed 40 in that one. The fall classic, we're assuming $15,000. That doesn't include pledges. That's a separate calculation, so we don't even put that in here. It's just operating. And the spring classic, we're assuming $20,000. And then membership and donations, $10,000 in line with last year. And then that means for the campus-based totals, they will receive, Peabody primary will receive $18,615, Watkins $36,890, and Stuart-Hobson $43,995. And then the family events, open houses, and meeting support and inclusion will have $5,000. And just 2 points on this, because we had to look at this number closely. We decided to go to all virtual meetings for our PTA meetings, which saves us about $2,000. And then the scavenger hunt, which we're hoping to do again in the fall, we've already paid for the licensing for it. So that saves about $1,000. And so we were able to keep this particular bucket a little smaller than we had, I guess, a year ago at this time, but it's still robust and we'll still be able to get all of the events that the family engagement co-chairs come up with. So we're pretty happy with that budget. Teacher appreciation, we're at 5,000, down from 8,000 last year. Principal stipends at 6,000, that's the same. Marketing, communications, and spiritware, we lowered this a little bit, but that's because we have some inventory already. So we don't want to be giving a higher number when we already have some stock. So we're gonna hold back on that one a little bit. And PTA operations, we went up slightly because we increased our insurance costs for the year. We added 2 riders and that costs more money, obviously. And also with QuickBooks, we have to use a slightly higher subscription cost. It's like the middle range. They have different ranges, but it's not the lowest range, it's the next one up, because we want to be able to run reports every year throughout the year, and we can only do it with that level. So we went up a little bit. And then PTA discretionary emergency, we held that the same at 10,000, and dues to national it is what it is. It's $1,000 every year. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let me get down to the screen where you can actually see the numbers. And we're going to pass this around and you can read this thoroughly. I'm not going to read every line of this. It's boring to me, but Peabody, you can see there's 219 students, and that's how you get to the number of 18,615, 434 students projected at Watkins. So you just multiply it by 85, 507 students at Stuart-Hobson, again, multiply by 85, you get that number. And so that's basically it. I don't know if anybody has any questions, we can take them.
Just to your point, these last 2 pages will be posted along with the, excuse me, the notes and the voting. Notes a lot to absorb. Looks like Sarah's got a hand raised. Where are you, Sarah? Want to unmute?
Yeah. Hey, Jess, could you just, so there's the like campus per student. Could you talk a little bit more about, like, I know you mentioned that happens later in the fall, but like, what is that money, and kind of historically, what does it support? How does it support, et cetera? Could you just, for those of us who don't know.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, that's what each campus, when they do their programming, when they do things like Food Prints or Kindred last year, or any of their main programs that they operate. I think Watchstones was under a Watkins operating budget. Anything like that, anything that's like at the campus level, that's that money. That's the campus programming. And so that's why we want it to be as big a piece of the pie as we can. And we really try to make sure we can do that even in a lean budget. That's our goal, to get as much as we can into the students.
Got it. Cool. You know, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think the goal is that those conversations will start like as soon as we go back to school, so that those decisions can be made pretty quickly, you know, hopefully by at least right after Labor Day weekend, after talking to both principals and the needs of each administration.
And the exec committees are always looking for ideas and suggestions. So everyone should feel free to reach out to them with your ideas. Just let them know what's important to you and your kid and your kiddos and other people's kiddos.
Looking for any other hands in the chat. Okay. As we mentioned earlier, all of this will be posted at some point tomorrow once we get the Google form up. Everyone in the community is welcome to vote, and we'll keep it open, I think, at least a week to that noon. Got a question from Meg. Is it correct that Kindred is not included in this budget? So to clarify in Kindred, because Kindred is not across the 3 campuses, it is Peabody and Watkins focused. Those 2 campuses make the decision on the final decision on Kindred. Last year, Peabody allocated 2,500, and because Watkins is slightly larger, they allocated 5,000, which was the 7,500 that the PTA was asked to fund for Kindred last year. Okay. This actually seems like a perfect segue. I think, Ryan, are you still with us? There he is.
No, I'm still here.
Sorry, I know we're running super over. My apologies. Our second special guest tonight, speaking of Kindred, is Ryan Jones. He is a senior organizer and a Kindred facilitator. So he is joining us tonight to talk about looking back on Kindred this year at Peabody and Watkins. And I think we actually might have a parent too, Nelson. I didn't see if he joined yet, to talk about his experiences. So turning it over to you. And again, my apologies for 9:05.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and more power to you all for sticking through this through a late evening. I know, I'm sure it's been a long day. Again, thank you for having me. My name is Ryan Jones. I'm a facilitating organizer with Kindred. Prior to that, I started my career in the classroom through Teacher America. I taught high school English in Ferguson, Missouri before moving to KIPP and working at several nonprofits, all working to address racial and educational inequity. Excited to work with the Capital Cluster community. What is Kindred? Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Kindred is a network of diverse caregivers and staff committed to advancing equitable life opportunities for all children. What does that mean? Our vision is that in all schools, children and families will thrive without difference by economic situation, racial or ethnic identity, ability, or another designation. Our mission is to support parents, staff, and school-based educational system leaders in partnering to co-design equitable, anti-racist schools that advance collective well-being. So how do we do that, actually? I feel like that was very wordy, and like, what does that actually mean, right? So we partner with schools over the course of 3 years. The first year is focused on hosting dialogue groups between parents, and we keep saying parents, and it obviously, it depends on the school partnership agreement, but in the cluster, we've been working with both parents and staff members. So we partner with schools across the course of 3 years. In the first year, we partner with parents and staff members to lead dialogue groups. In these groups, we discuss a number of different things, but mostly around their backgrounds, race, equity, and their goals for their children or students over the course of 10 sessions again. The goal is for families and staff members to genuinely build bonds collectively, because the idea is in year 2, they're going to use their bonds and the discussions that they had in year 1 to push for equitable outcomes in the school community that they have. And so as we wrap up those 10 dialogue sessions in year 1, we move into the second phase of our work that also leads us into year 2, and we call that our equity team work. So in that, both the parent group and the staff group, particularly for the cluster community, come together and they form an equity team. And that's when they kind of go over what they discuss in their dialogue sessions, but also thinking back to their own backgrounds and what they discussed and what was brought up in the dialogue sessions. What are some of the inequities that they perceive to be in the school community that they want to address? And so that's what's happening in the latter half of year 1 and as they move into year 2, while simultaneously though, and it also varies depending on the school, we are actually training participants who were in the initial set of dialogue groups to lead their own dialogue groups. So it's kind of the growth and scale model of Kindred's program. So ideally, the folks who were in the initial phase of the work and were able to build community and trust with one another are also pushing that into the broader school community. And then in year 3, we're working on scale and impact, and continue to focus on impact, right? So the idea is that how do you make sure that this is sustainable once Kindred actually leaves? And maybe even if there's some transition between parents or staff or whatever it may be, but we want to make sure that's actually sustainable, and we do a little bit more programmatic work to make sure that's still possible for everyone. Again, we usually do this work between 2 to 3 years with the school community. The work looks different depending on the school and what are the issues that are actually brought up within the dialogue sessions. And as we talk to the school principals, we want to make sure that although we are working with one set of parents and staff members in the first year, that we eventually begin to work with the broader school community, particularly with those voices that are the most marginalized and maybe not always at the table. So I think that is it on timing. I want to be very cognizant of time. I don't think I have time for questions. Do I have time for questions? Okay, sweet. And so I'll leave that open for questions if folks have any. Also, hi to the folks in the group. It's very nice to see familiar faces and names. Hi, Sarah.
So Ryan, are you all done with your 10 sessions? for the
That is
year?
correct. We have completed our 10 sessions and we are moving into the equity team phase of our work, which is a more action-oriented phase and helping the group supporting the group as they enter year 2 or the next year of the school.
And do you feel that we are, as a community, on track where we should be compared to where schools usually are?
That's a great question. And it's, I don't want to compare and contrast because every school is so different, but I do feel as though the group itself is on a good path and track considering what I've learned about the school community and just the dynamics within the group itself. I think there have been some really strong relationships that have been built. I think in both groups, we've had some really interesting, maybe somewhat difficult conversations that needed to happen. And I'm hoping that since the groups have had those initially, we'll be able to bring that into the broader school community, just to begin to do a lot of healing and mending of relationships that need to happen from my understanding.
Mm-hmm. And is it, the parent track is one and then the teacher track and faculty track is another? Do they ever, is there any point where they cross over and have conversations here?
Yeah, so they are 2 separate tracks. So they did, the parent track and the staff group did their dialogue sessions in different days, different times. They are at the point where they're in the one group together, and that's what we call our equity team. It's as opposed to the 10 sessions, there are only about 3 to 4 sessions. And that's more so like an abbreviated version of building community. But now we're talking about, okay, what do we want to do? Like, what are some of the actions we want to take as a group to try to help the school become more inclusive and equitable?
If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think, Nelson, did you want to share anything from your perspective? I think.
I did want to add a bit. First, hello, everyone. I wanted to just kind of talk about a couple of things that Ryan actually hit on, but I just wanted to outline just my participation and my experience. To be completely honest, I went in very pessimistic, and I was honest about it. I have seen this work be attempted at other schools around the city and it not work. And a lot of the reasons why I've seen it be unsuccessful was you have a group who's hard charging and really storming, and everyone's all behind it. And then there's a transition in administration and the priorities change. And when those priorities change, the funding goes away and that steam goes away. I remember when it was initially brought up in a PTA meeting a couple of years ago, I remember having a conversation with Maeve and Ramona about it. And what I said to them was, if it's not going to be supported for several years, it's a waste. And just as a former school administrator, I've seen really good programs be destroyed because it just wasn't supported. But that's that. My experience having participated in the group was so different than what I expected. I'm walking away today and I can say that I've genuinely made friends with people I'd never had a conversation with. And the conversations, as Ryan talked about, having some really difficult conversations, there were some very uncomfortable conversations that I believe have to be had and need to be had in a larger group. And having them in those small groups, I think after a while, as difficult as they were, they became more comfortable after a while because we began to see things from the perspective of others. Me, being a Black man, I have no idea what it's like to navigate the world as a white woman. Having these conversations, both in the group and in the individual conversations, my thinking starts to change. You know, perspective starts to change. You begin to appreciate just how others see situations that are far different from what you see. And not only, I mean, we're talking about opposites. I had a conversation with a fellow Kindred member, a parent, a deaf white man, never even considered the challenges that a deaf person faces navigating the world, let alone a small community like the school. That being said, I think this program is important. I think it I think it's something we should really consider funding, even if we find some alternative way to fund the program. And my wife may get mad at me, but I think we need to make a make a personal contribution to getting it started, to getting fundraising started. Because if there's no room in the school's budget, no room in the PTA budget, I think that the work itself is important enough for us to raise the funds as a secondary fundraiser. I know that's not popular. I know that takes work, but I'm willing to make the first donation. So I'm going to say right now, me and my beautiful wife, she's not in here right now, but she's on. We're going to contribute 500. We're going to start the ball rolling there, and I hope that others will follow us. And because I think the work is really, really important. My mind was changed. I did not go in thinking that we could make real change. I'm just being honest. I went in pessimistic, and I've come out on the other end completely changed. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Nelson. That's wonderful to hear your perspective, and we really appreciate your honesty and sharing tonight. I think we have, I thought I saw one more hand raised from the Kindred team. I might be wrong. Apologies.
Kara has his hand up.
Oh, Kara. Oh, say, I can't see everybody. Okay. Oh, Kara, turning it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nelson, great job as always. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I do want to lift up the idea that the Kindred group and the time that we spent together has definitely been life-changing. I think for not only us as individuals, but also our kids, learning from each other's perspectives has been, and Nelson already kind of shared this, but it's been like life-changing because now you see things from a different lens. And so working as an educator myself as well, you have a perspective, but once you get a chance to learn and talk to other people, you gain a deeper appreciation for their life. Like we talked about how people grew up as kids and some of the things that, you know, you would never have an opportunity to learn from a parent at a school in a 5 to 7 minute conversation. So I definitely think it's super valuable and something that we should be pushing at all schools. One other thing that we've talked about is, as the Kindred group, we would love to talk to the PTA executive committee and have a conversation around some of the ideas and thoughts that we've come up with as a team, because we think some of those ideas need to be implemented if we're truly going to say that we're for every member of our school community at all 3 campuses. If we want to push this idea of equity and inclusion, we need to have, I think, our group believes we need to have a conversation with you all to then share some of the thoughts and ideas so we can actually invoke some true change on our 3 campuses and be a cluster for every single individual family and student, and make sure we have a welcoming environment.
We are going to take you up on that. More than happy to orchestrate a conversation, Zoom meeting, whatever works best. We've got one question from Lauren in the chat. Can you explain again how the benefits expand to reach the rest of the school community in the next 2 years?
Definitely.
Ryan, that might be at you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Great question, Lauren. Happy to explain. So again, it's a 3-year model, 3 to 4 year, depending on the school partnership. In the first year, you have about 20 to maybe 25 parents and staff members participating in 10 dialogue sessions. In the second year, those parent and staff members come together to form an equity team. They're creating actions that they have, that they have created to address any inequities that have come up in those initial 10 dialogue sessions within the school community. So hopefully that is for the benefit of the entire school community. So simultaneously, while the equity team is creating those actions and implementing them, we're also training parents and staff members to facilitate their own dialogue groups. So the same experience that Okira and Nelson just talked about building relationships, learning about other perspectives, and hopefully changing their mindsets around different backgrounds and experience of others, they're actually pushing that within the school community as well to other parents and staff members. So the idea is that while they're implementing actions on one perspective, they're also changing the mindsets of the broader school community at the same time. Does that make sense?
Follow up from Lauren, does the school community get to learn the actions?
For sure. I think it sounds like Okira will be talking to the PTA at some point, but we're also, and if I can just speak candidly for the group members, we're also still in like a very early stages of like figuring out and like seeing what it looks like. So once they are finalized and ready to go, first the school community will definitely be involved in these conversations. And M. Scott has been to the staff dialogue groups, hearing their perspective and their potential actions, and he's coming actually to the next session for the equity team, which is again both this parent and staff group coming together. He's coming on Thursday to hear their perspective and collective actions as well. And myself and our executive director are in constant communication with him as well, just to manage expectations, talk about what's coming next and things like that, and see if all of this is vibing together, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Anyone else? Questions for Ryan?
This is Sarah. I just wanted to I was going to throw in the chat, but I'll just say it. I think that I'm also on the parent group. I think to Lauren's question, we can definitely post all the participant names and contact information somewhere, because I think we're all more than happy to talk to anyone about the work that we've done. And I think we're all excited to share next steps going forward. And we certainly don't want it to feel like some mysterious secret society. That's 100% not at all. And I can see how it would feel like, what is this group and what are they doing? So we're all happy to share.
Yeah.
So we've got a Kindred section on the cluster website, which we can update if you and the team want to send us the information to Zach, and he'll get it uploaded with names and email addresses for anyone who feels comfortable putting those on the website.
And thank you for making that point, Sarah. To Sarah's point, this is not at all by any means a secret, or I just meant it's not meant to be secretive or a secret club. If you have any questions, even if you're not a Kindred member, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to explain what it is or anything like that.
And we'll put your email address on the website too.
Sweet, and I'll put it in the chat too.
Sounds good. Anyone have any other questions for Ryan or members of Team Kindred?
Sweet. Well, you all enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. Sorry we ran so late.
It's totally fine.
Appreciate you and your time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. All right, team. We are approaching 9:30. Just a couple of quick things as we wrap things up tonight. Update on the PTA board slate. So the great news to share with everyone is we are super close on presenting the PTA board for school year 2021-2022. We do have a handful of parents who are still making final decisions. One other conversation that we need to have, and we do have 3 open roles for which we are still looking for candidates. And those include fundraising chair, Peabody executive committee, and membership co-chair. So if you or you know of anyone who might be interested in those 3 specific positions, we would love to talk to you. We've got a 5-person nominating committee, including Zach, Antonique Rawlings, Vince Marino, Katie Beret, and Catherine Davis. So please feel free to reach out to one of them. Process-wise, we're planning on finalizing the vote to open this Thursday or Friday at the latest. Voting will be online and will be held open for the week. So that's the update on the slate, and thank you very much to everyone who's reached out and who will be joining the board next year. And speaking of next year, I think our principals did a great job talking about what they've got going on between now and the end of the year, including our 5th grade, our kindergarten, our 8th grade graduations. Last day of school is June 24th. But we did want to tease out 2 PTA dates to share with everyone as you start to think about the next school year. We will be doing our scavenger hunt, which was a huge success last November. In September, date TBD, but we wanted to launch that as our big community event for everyone. No competition, of course, involved in that one. And then the final reveal is that the Fall Classic is coming back. It will be Sunday, October 24th. Jason Levine, our fearless leader, has secured it on the DC events calendar. He's starting his ANC meetings virtually. God knows how long those will take. But we are full steam ahead with a Fall Classic coming back on the books that last weekend of October. So we were super excited to get that sign off from DC events. So I think that's it. Unless anyone has any other questions, I want to thank everyone for a great meeting. I think we accomplished a tremendous amount. And please keep an eye out. We've got LSAT voting is going on now. We will have budget voting going on, and of course the slate. So please keep an eye out for those 3 online votes between now and I think the Friday, whatever that is, June 4th or 5th. So thanks everyone. Have a good evening and a good rest of your week.